The most valuable player, it's an award that represents a player's overall greatness for any given season. In this video, I'm going to name the best NFL quarterback from every AP MVP total, and yes, we're counting the Associated Press's MVPs. If I tally up all the NEA MVPs, PFWA MVPs, or Super Bowl MVPs, then we're just mashing different awards up, when the AP MVP is kinda like the unwritten rule as the de facto MVP award. So without further ado, let's rewind onto that list. We gotta start with the best quarterback to never win the MVP award. Now for this spot, I only want to factor in retired players. I don't think it's fair to include active players who surely got time to win this award. The best retired quarterback to not win an MVP has a ton of great options. Some of these options include Warren Moon, Troy Aikman, and Roger the Dodger, just to name a few. My pick, however, has got to be Drew Brees. He's like second all-time in passing yards and second all-time in completions, and that did last for a long while in both categories. It just so happens that Tom Brady doesn't age, which is how he eventually claimed those first place spots. But Drew Brees was one of the best quarterbacks of all time, period. Forget MVP totals. I think this mostly has to do with the era he played in. It just so happened that his prime was alongside Peyton Manning's prime, who pretty much had a monopoly on this AP MVP award. The best quarterback to only have one AP MVP has a ton of great options. Just to name a few, you got the likes of Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, Matt Ryan, and Brian Sipe, just to name a few. The closest, however, is between Patrick Mahomes, John Elway, and Dan Marino. Now I will say that Patrick Mahomes and Cam Newton both have a ton of time to add to their already amazing resume, so they might not even be in the one trophy spot if I were to make a future video, just on the basis that they might win more. Which brings us down to the John Elway versus Dan Marino debate, and you can easily just look at their trophy cases and choose John simply because he is a two-time Super Bowl champion. And if this were the NBA, I would say that's a great argument because in the sport of basketball, one single player could will an entire team to that championship level. But with the NFL, it's a bit different. Even if you wanted to give a quarterback all the credit, at the absolute most, you can only give them half the credit, and that's even a stretch, considering the offense has a bunch of moving parts. So really, the ring argument is not that good unless the stats are so close you need to find some sort of tiebreaker, but it shouldn't be the founding argument. With that being said, Dan is statistically the better player than John Elway, and the fact that Dan was playing hero ball carrying those Dolphin teams were a feat in of itself. Even during his era, the real debate was between Joe Montana versus Dan Marino. Dan himself is 7th all-time with passing yards at 61,361. Only 4 players so far in NFL history have 2 MVPs. These 4 are Joe Namath, Joe Montana, Steve Young, and Kurt Warner. There's really no wrong answer here, but the closest for me is between Joe Montana and Steve Young. We got the 49ers debate on this pick. They are statistically very close, especially if you compare averages. Joe has the higher all-time stats. Since he did start more games, both were pretty injury prone. I think Joe is way more clutch in the postseason, and his stats show that anyway, they're like night and day, which is why Joe gets my pick. I mean, this guy was like the king of the comebacks. You know, milking out the clock is one thing, but racing against the clock to secure a ring is another thing, and Joe made that look easy. There are only 3 NFL players so far with 3 MVPs, and at the 3 MVP spot, this is certainly the hardest choice. You got Brett Favre, Johnny Unitas, and Tom Brady. You can make a great argument for each one of these players. I think the closest is between Johnny Unitas and Tom Brady. The hardest part is comparing the eras. Back in Johnny's day, you might as well call the game Kill the Carrier instead of football. The fact that there are so many new rules in today's game, one of the famous rules is even known as the Brady rule, that was implemented after Brady got injured during the 2008 season. The rule stopped defenders from hitting the passer in the knee area or lower, even if being contacted by another person. So one could argue that Brady would have been physically beaten down in Johnny's era. But you can turn that argument on its head and say that Johnny would not be able to keep up with the speed of today's game. Even the rate in which teams pass versus rush is now favoring passing over rushing, and this gap is starting to widen. And then there's the general running rate, which players' speeds are getting faster and faster as the years go on, and defenses are reacting quicker and quicker. I do think it's fair to ask if Johnny would be able to thrive at a high level if he had to play in a super speedy, quick reactionary era of football. He'd certainly still be good, he's just too talented, but would he be the same GOAT status like he was during his era? That is hard to say, and that also works for Brady. Would Brady be that good but in Johnny's era, who knows? I don't want to settle this debate with a trophy case or a ring case, plus both quarterbacks were some of the best for their decades. Here's what separates Brady from Johnny. When Johnny was 40 years old playing his final season with the Chargers, he was clearly out of his prime and not the QB he once was. Compare that to Brady, who even at 44 and counting is still playing at an extremely high level. Longevity is what separates these two, and the stats show it as well. Johnny is an excellent player, and may he rest in peace. We're simply just comparing their games, and my pick for this spot is Tom Brady. There's only one player in NFL history so far with 4 AP MVPs, and that's Aaron Rodgers. He won his MVPs during the years 2011, 2014, 2020, and 2021. And there's only one player in NFL history with 5 AP MVPs so far, and that's Peyton Manning, who won his MVPs during the years 2003, 2004, 2008, and 2013. So here's the best quarterback at every AP MVP total. Let me know what you think of this list and what you want to see next. Don't forget to tackle that like button and subscribe with notifications turned on. I'm Touchdown Rewind, and I'll fast forward to you later.